The great hall of the Galactic Assembly stretched for miles in every direction, a monument to the power of 400 species united under one government. Floating platforms carried delegates from worlds that humanity had never seen, creatures of light and shadow, beings made of crystal and flame, minds that existed as pure energy. For 12,000 years, this place had been the center of galactic civilization. Ambassador Catherine Cole stood alone on the human platform, watching the chaos unfold around her. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes, but her spine was straight and her voice never wavered. Behind her stood Daniel Perry, her assistant of 15 years, his hand shaking slightly as he held the official documents. "The Assembly recognizes the petition from Earth," announced High Arbiter Verlax, his massive insectoid body towering above the central podium. His compound eyes reflected 1,000 images of Catherine, each one showing her isolation, her weakness, her irrelevance in this vast chamber of ancient powers. Catherine stepped forward. "High Arbiter, Earth formally requests the removal of Kethrani mining operations from our outer solar system. These operations were established without our consent and continue to strip our territory of essential resources." The Kethrani delegation, a group of reptilian creatures with scales the color of dried blood, hissed with amusement. Their leader, Fleet Commander Draxus, rose from his seat. "The human delegate speaks of territory," Draxus said, his voice dripping with contempt. "But what territory does Earth claim? Your species has been part of this assembly for 3 centuries. In that time, you have contributed nothing of significance. Your technology is primitive. Your military is laughable. You exist because we allow you to exist." Catherine felt the familiar burn of anger in her chest, but she kept her face calm. She had heard these words before, 1,000 times, in 1,000 different ways. Every species in the galaxy looked at humanity and saw children playing at civilization. "The Kuiper Belt is within our solar system," Catherine replied. "By any reasonable definition, it belongs to Earth." Verlax clicked his mandibles, a gesture that Catherine had learned to recognize as dismissal. Galactic Statute 742 clearly states that undeveloped resources in member territories may be claimed by any species with the capability to extract them. Earth lacks this capability. The Kethrani do not. The petition is denied. The chamber erupted in murmurs of agreement. Catherine saw delegates nodding, their alien faces showing satisfaction at another human failure. This was how it always went. Earth asked for fairness and received lectures about their inadequacy. Daniel leaned close to her ear. "Ambassador, we should withdraw the petition gracefully. Continuing will only embarrass us further." Catherine did not respond. She was thinking about the message she had received that morning, transmitted through secure channels from President Samuel Grant himself. The words were burned into her memory. Furthermore, Verlax continued, "The Assembly has received reports of unauthorized military expansion within the Sol system. Earth has constructed warships in violation of the Newcomer Accords. This violation cannot be ignored." The chamber fell silent. Catherine felt every eye turn toward her, predators sensing weakness in their prey. "The Newcomer Accords limit Earth's military forces to defensive levels only," Verlax said. "Our inspectors have determined that your fleet now exceeds these limits by a factor of 3. You will reduce your forces to acceptable levels within 1 standard cycle or face sanctions." Daniel's face went pale. "They want us to disarm while the Kethrani take everything we have." Catherine closed her eyes for a moment, gathering her thoughts. When she opened them again, something had changed in her expression. The tiredness was gone, replaced by something cold and hard. "High Arbiter," she said, her voice cutting through the whispers. "I have a statement from the United Earth Government." Verlax tilted his massive head. "Proceed." Catherine took a deep breath. This was the moment. 300 years of humiliation, of being treated as lesser beings, watching their resources stolen and their protests ignored. 300 years of waiting, effective immediately, Catherine announced. Earth withdraws from the Galactic Assembly. The chamber exploded into chaos. Delegates shouted in a dozen languages, their translators struggling to keep up. Verlax slammed his ceremonial staff against the podium, demanding order. You cannot withdraw, he said, his compound eyes blazing. No species has ever left the assembly. The treaties are binding. Catherine smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. The treaties are pieces of paper, High Arbiter. Earth no longer recognizes them. All agreements between humanity and this body are dissolved. Our borders are closed. Any vessel entering Sol System space without explicit human authorization will be considered hostile and will be destroyed. Draxus rose from his seat, his scales flushing dark with rage. You dare threaten the Kathrani hegemony? We will crush your pathetic species before you can blink. You are welcome to try, Catherine replied. I suggest you bring more ships than you sent last time. The chamber fell silent again, but this silence was different. This silence was fear. Verlax leaned forward, his voice suddenly soft. Ambassador Cole, I urge you to reconsider. Earth cannot survive alone. You depend on galactic trade for essential resources. Your technology is centuries behind the major powers. Without the protection of the Assembly, you will be vulnerable to any species that wishes to take what you have. Catherine turned to face him directly, her gray eyes meeting his compound ones without flinching. For 300 years, you have told us what we cannot do, she said. You have told us that we are weak, primitive, insignificant. You have stolen our resources and called it law. You have limited our growth and called it protection. You have treated us like children and expected us to be grateful. She paused, letting her words sink into the vast chamber. But here is what you never understood about humanity, High Arbiter. We learn. We adapt. We grow. Every obstacle you placed in our path, we found a way around. Every limitation you imposed, we worked within until we could break free. You thought you were keeping us contained. You were only making us stronger. Catherine gathered her documents and nodded to Daniel. They walked toward the exit, their footsteps echoing in the stunned silence. At the door, she turned back one final time. The galaxy has spent 3 centuries underestimating humanity. That era is over. From this moment forward, Earth stands alone. And alone, we will show you exactly what we are capable of. She walked out without looking back, leaving 400 species to contemplate. A universe that had suddenly become very different. The Galactic Assembly had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. They had faced rebellions and wars, plagues and disasters, threats from beyond the galactic rim. They had survived everything the universe could throw at them, but they had never faced anything like this. They had never faced humanity with nothing left to lose. The news spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Every species, every world, every station and outpost heard the same impossible story. Earth had left the Galactic Assembly. The humans had walked away from the only interstellar government the galaxy had ever known, Anthesia Prime, the homeworld of the Assembly's founders. High Arbiter Verlax called an emergency meeting of the Inner Council. The chamber was smaller than the Great Hall, designed for private discussions among the truly powerful. Only 12 species had seats here. The ancient ones who had ruled the galaxy since before humanity's ancestors climbed down from the trees. This is unprecedented, said Trade Minister Solana of the Veth Consortium, her silver skin rippling with anxiety. No species has ever withdrawn from the Assembly. The economic implications alone are catastrophic. Then we force them back, growled Fleet Commander Draxus. Send the hegemony fleet to Sol System. Blockade their planet. Starve them until they beg to return. Verlax clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. And if they resist, they cannot resist. Their military is nothing compared to ours. Our projections show that Earth's entire fleet could be destroyed in a matter of hours. Your projections? Said a quiet voice from the corner. May be outdated. Everyone turned to look at Intelligence Director Viarn of the Neth Collective. The Neth were strange beings, a hive-mind civilization that experienced reality in ways other species could barely comprehend. They rarely spoke in these meetings, preferring to observe and analyze. Explain? Verlax demanded. Vern's body shifted, colors flowing across their translucent form. The humans have been preparing for this moment for over a century. While we dismissed them as primitive, they were building hidden shipyards in the asteroid belt, research facilities on the moons of Jupiter, weapons development programs buried so deep that even our best agents could not find them. Draxus hissed with disbelief. Impossible. Our surveillance would have detected such activities. Your surveillance saw what the humans wanted you to see. They are not as foolish as you believed, Fleet Commander. They understood that they were being watched, so they hid their true capabilities behind a mask of weakness. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in.
How powerful are they?
Solana asked, her voice barely above a whisper. We do not know, Vierne admitted. That is what concerns us most. 3 weeks later, Fleet Commander Draxus got his answer. A Kathrani battle group of 15 warships entered Sol System space, ignoring all warnings from Earth's outer defense stations. They were veterans of 100 campaigns, confident in their superiority, eager to teach the upstart humans their place. Admiral Gregory Santos watched their approach from the bridge of the carrier Independence. He was a tall man with dark skin and calm eyes. A commander who had spent his entire career preparing for a battle that everyone told him would never come. Contact in 15 minutes, reported Lieutenant Commander Maria Vega from the tactical station. They're not slowing down. I didn't expect them to, Santos replied. All ships, weapons free. Execute Battle Plan Alpha. The human fleet numbered only 8 vessels, half the size of the Kathrani force. By any reasonable calculation, they should have been destroyed in the first exchange. The Kathrani commander was so confident of victory that he did not even bother to raise his shields until the humans opened fire. It was over in 4 minutes. The weapons that humanity had developed, in secret, bore no resemblance to the primitive kinetic cannons the assembly had allowed them to build. Directed energy beams cut through Kathrani armor like sunlight through fog. Missiles that moved faster than anything the galaxy had ever seen struck their targets before point defense systems could react. Electronic warfare programs designed by Earth's greatest minds shut down enemy ships from the inside, leaving them helpless. When the last Kathrani vessel limped away, trailing atmosphere and debris, Admiral Santos leaned back in his chair and allowed himself a small smile. Send a message to Earth Command, he said. Tell them the demonstration was successful. On Earth, President Samuel Grant addressed the United Nations in an emergency session. The Great Hall was packed with representatives from every nation, their faces showing a mixture of fear and pride. 3 weeks ago, we told the galaxy that Earth would stand alone, Grant said. Today we showed them what that means. A Kathrani battle group entered our space without permission. They believed that their superior technology and numbers would allow them to do whatever they wanted. They were wrong. He paused, letting the words settle. Shh, make no mistake, the path ahead will be difficult. We have made powerful enemies today. The Galactic Assembly will not forgive this embarrassment. They will try again, with larger forces and better tactics. But they will fail, because humanity did not make this choice lightly. We prepared. We planned. We built the tools we needed to defend ourselves. Grant's voice hardened. For 300 years, we played by their rules. We accepted their limitations. We swallowed their insults. And what did it get us? They still treated us like servants. They still stole our resources. They still looked at us with contempt. He slammed his hand on the podium. No more. Earth will never again bow to any alien power. We will trade with those who treat us fairly. We will fight those who threaten us. And we will build a future that belongs to humanity, not to masters who see us as tools to be used and discarded. The chamber erupted in applause. Across the galaxy, other species watched and wondered. The Neth Collective analyzed every piece of data they could gather, trying to understand how humanity had advanced so quickly. The Varaxian Free States sent quiet messages to Earth, expressing interest in dialogue. Dozens of smaller species, long oppressed by assembly politics, began to ask themselves a dangerous question. If humanity could leave, could they? The universe had not changed overnight. The assembly still controlled most of galactic civilization. The great powers still commanded vast fleets and ancient technologies. In terms of raw resources and population, humanity was still a minor player on the cosmic stage. But something fundamental had shifted. A crack had appeared in the foundation of 12,000 years of galactic order. And through that crack, a new light was beginning to shine. Admiral Santos stood on the observation deck of the Independence, watching the star's wheels slowly pass. Maria Vega joined him, 2 cups of coffee in her hands. "The Kathrani will be back," she said, offering him one. Santos took it and nodded. "Yes, with more ships and better intelligence. They won't underestimate us again. Are we ready?" Santos considered the question carefully. The truth was complicated. Earth had achieved a miracle today, but miracles could not be repeated forever. They needed allies, resources, time to build and grow. They needed the galaxy to see them as something other than enemies. "We're ready for the next battle," he said finally. "What comes after that depends on choices we haven't made yet." He looked out at the stars, at the vast darkness between points of light, at the universe that had never welcomed humanity but could no longer ignore them. "But whatever happens," he added, "we'll face it standing up. Never again on our knees." Maria nodded and stood beside him in silence. Watching the stars burn in the eternal night, the emergency session of the Inner Council had been running for 16 hours straight. Delegates slumped in their chairs, their bodies exhausted but their minds unable to rest. The impossible had happened, and the galaxy was scrambling to understand what it meant. High Arbiter Verlax stood before a massive holographic display, showing the economic networks that connected assembly space. Red lines marked disrupted trade routes. Amber zones indicated markets in crisis. The picture was not good. Human-manufactured goods accounted for 23% of all assembly trade. Trade Minister Solana reported, her silver skin dull with fatigue. Their withdrawal has created shortages in 47 sectors. Medical supplies, precision instruments, entertainment media, agricultural equipment. The list grows longer every day. "How is this possible?" demanded a delegate from the chorus of 10,000 worlds, a collective of smaller species that rarely spoke in inner council meetings. "Humans are primitives. How could their economy be so important?" Solana pulled up another display. "Because we let them become important. For 3 centuries, we used human labor and creativity while limiting their political power. They built our ships, programmed our computers, grew our food. We paid them a fraction of what the work was worth and told ourselves we were being generous." She paused, her luminous eyes sweeping across the chamber. "We created a dependency, not theirs on us, as we believed. Ours on them." Fleet Commander Draxus slammed his clawed fist against his podium. "Then we take what we need by force. Our fleet is rebuilding. Within 3 months, we can assemble an armada that will crush any resistance." "And then what?" Intelligence Director Vion asked quietly. "You destroy their military. You occupy their planet. What happens to the factories? The workers? The minds that created the products we need? Do you think they will continue to produce for us after we have killed their families and enslaved their children?" Draxus hissed, but had no answer. Verlax clicked his mandibles slowly, a sign of deep thought. "There must be another way. We have dealt with rebellious species before. We have always found leverage." "The humans are different," Viarn said. "They planned for this moment. They saw it coming long before we did. Whatever leverage we might have used, they have already prepared defenses against it." The chamber fell into uncomfortable silence. On the other side of the galaxy, in the crystalline towers of the Neth Collective's homeworld, a different kind of meeting was taking place. The Neth did not gather in physical rooms like other species. They existed as a vast network of connected minds. Millions of individuals sharing thoughts and experiences across the light years. But today, single consciousness had been chosen to speak for them all. Her name was Alira, and she stood in a chamber of pure white light, facing a holographic image of Earth's ambassador, Catherine Cole. "Your withdrawal from the assembly has created interesting opportunities," Alira said, her form shifting through colors as different parts of the collective contributed to her words. The Neth have long been uncomfortable with Thetian dominance. We see now that alternatives exist. Catherine nodded carefully. Earth is not looking to replace the Assembly. We simply want to be treated as equals. And yet your actions have already begun to reshape the galaxy. 17 species have contacted us in the past week asking about the possibility of their own withdrawal. The Assembly's authority has never been questioned so openly. What do the Neth want? Alira paused, her form flickering as the collective debated internally. When she spoke again, her voice carried the weight of millions of minds. We want to understand. The Neth have existed for 800,000 years. We have seen civilizations rise and fall like waves on a beach. We thought we understood the patterns of history. But humanity is something new, something we have not encountered before. Catherine raised an eyebrow. New in what way? You adapt faster than any species we have ever studied. When the Assembly limited your technology, you invented workarounds. When they restricted your territory, you maximized what you had. When they dismissed you as primitive, you used that dismissal as cover for your preparations. In 3 centuries, you have accomplished what takes most species 3 millennia. We had motivation, Catherine replied. It is amazing what you can accomplish when everyone around you expects you to fail. Alira's form solidified, taking on a more humanoid shape. The Neth would like to propose an exchange. We have resources that Earth needs. Minerals raw. Re-elements. Biological compounds essential for your medical technologies. In return, we would like access to your methods. Our methods? The way you think. The way you solve problems. The way you turn weakness into strength. These are not things that can be easily quantified, but they are more valuable than any physical resource. The Neth wished to learn from humanity. Catherine considered this carefully. An alliance with the Neth collective would transform Earth's strategic position. They controlled vast territories on the galactic rim, far from Assembly interference. Their technology was ancient and powerful, and they had never been enemies of humanity. I will need to consult with my government, she said finally, but I believe we can find terms that benefit both our peoples. Lyra's form rippled with what might have been satisfaction. We look forward to further discussions, Ambassador. The galaxy is changing. It would be wise for those who wish to survive to change with it. On Earth, the news of the Neth contact was received with cautious optimism. President Grant called a meeting of his closest advisors in the underground bunker beneath Geneva. This could be the breakthrough we need, said Secretary of Defense Christopher Lang. The Neth have resources we cannot access anywhere else. Their medical compounds alone could solve our most pressing shortages. It could also be a trap, cautioned Director of Intelligence, Sandra Powell. The Neth are not known for generosity. They always have motives within motives. What choice do we have? Asked Catherine, who had returned to Earth specifically for this meeting. We cannot sustain isolation indefinitely. We need allies, or at least trading partners, who will not try to destroy us. Grant listened to the debate, his face thoughtful. He was an older man, gray-haired and weathered by decades of political battles. He had not sought the presidency during normal times, but fate had placed him in this chair at the moment of humanity's greatest crisis. The Neth are playing their own game, he said finally. They see an opportunity to weaken the Assembly and advance their own interests. But that does not mean we cannot work with them. Sometimes the best alliances are those where both parties know exactly what the other wants. He turned to Catherine. Continue the negotiations. Be careful, be cautious, but be open. We need friends in this galaxy, even complicated ones. Catherine nodded. And the Assembly? Verlax has requested a dialogue. Grant smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Tell the High Arbiter that Earth is willing to talk, but the days of talking from weakness are over. If the Assembly wants to negotiate, they will come to us, and they will come as equals, or not at all. The message was transmitted across the stars, received in the great halls of the Sia, primed with shock and anger. No species had ever spoken to the Assembly this way. No species had ever dared. But as the old powers raged and threatened, something new was stirring in the darkness between stars. Other voices were beginning to speak. Other species were beginning to wonder if there might be another way. The galaxy was changing. Humanity was at the center of the storm. What came next would determine the fate of civilizations beyond counting. And for the first time in 12,000 years, the outcome was uncertain. 6 months after Earth's withdrawal from the Galactic Assembly, the strains of isolation were beginning to show. The initial euphoria of independence had given way to the hard reality of survival. Dr. Linda Harper stood in the control room of the Global Resource Initiative, surrounded by screens showing data from every corner of Earth's territory. She was a brilliant scientist who had spent her career solving impossible problems. But the challenge before her now threatened to break even her legendary optimism. The numbers do not lie, she told the emergency cabinet gathered via holographic link from locations around the world. We have stabilized food production and energy generation. Our manufacturing base is adapting to use locally sourced materials. But medical supplies remain critical. President Grant leaned forward. How critical? We relied on off-world sources for 32 essential compounds. Our scientists have successfully synthesized replacements for 28 of them. The remaining 4 are proving extremely difficult. What happens if we cannot produce them? Linda hesitated. She had rehearsed this part of the presentation a dozen times, but the words still felt heavy in her mouth. These compounds are used in treatments for cancer, heart disease, and neurological disorders. Without them, we estimate that mortality rates in these categories will increase by approximately 15%. Within 2 years, that translates to roughly 3 million additional deaths. The chamber fell silent. 3 million people. Not soldiers in battle or casualties of war, but ordinary citizens who would die because Earth could not access medicines that the galaxy had always provided. Options? Grant asked, his voice steady, despite the weight of the numbers. Admiral Santos spoke up from his link on the Independence. The Neth negotiations are progressing well. Their territories contain the minerals we need for 2 of the missing compounds. If we can finalize the trade agreement, we can begin extraction within 3 months. And the other 2? The other 2 exist primarily in Kethrania-controlled space. We have no diplomatic options there. Secretary of Defense Lang shifted uncomfortably. There is another possibility. Our intelligence indicates that the Kethrani maintain a processing facility on a moon called Varus 3. It is at the edge of their territory. Relatively lightly defended, a surgical strike could capture the facility and its stockpiles. You are talking about an act of war, said Secretary of State Patricia Morgan. We would be attacking a sovereign power without provocation. They have been attacking us for decades, Lang countered. Every mining operation they conducted in our system was an act of aggression. Every resource they stole was a blow against our people. The only difference is that we never fought back. Grant raised his hand, silencing the debate. We are not at the point of launching military strikes against the hegemony. Yet. Continue the Neth negotiations as our primary path. Dr. Harper. I want your team working around the clock on synthetic alternatives. We buy as much time as we can. Linda nodded, but her expression showed doubt. Sir, with respect, we have been working around the clock for 6 months. The synthetic alternatives are theoretically possible, but the research timeline is measured in years, not months. We may simply run out of time. The meeting ended without resolution, leaving the leaders of Earth to wrestle with impossible choices. On Thesha Prime, High Arbiter Verlax was facing his own crisis. The assembly that he led was fracturing along lines that had been invisible just months ago. The Varaxian Free States have formally requested observer status with the human government, reported his aide Korath, reading from a datapad. They claim it is purely a diplomatic gesture, but our analysts believe they are exploring the possibility of withdrawal. The Varaxians were founding members of the Assembly, Verlax said, his compound eyes dimming with stress. They helped write the original charter. That was 11,000 years ago. High Arbiter. Times change. Verlax rose from his ceremonial seat and walked to the window of his chamber. The city of the Sicha Prime stretched below him, towers of living crystal reaching toward the sky. A monument to 12 millennia of galactic civilization. His ancestors had built this. They had united a galaxy of warring species and created something lasting. Something that had survived wars and plagues and the rise and fall of 100 empires. And now it was crumbling because of one small species from an insignificant star system. What do the humans want? He asked. Truly want, beneath all the rhetoric and posturing? Korath considered the question carefully. From what we can determine, they want respect. They want to be treated as equals. They want the freedom to grow and develop without external limitations. We gave them 3 centuries of protection, 3 centuries of access to galactic markets and technologies, 3 centuries of peace within our borders. Is that not respect? With respect, High Arbiter, it is not. The protection came with conditions that kept them weak. The market access came with rules that kept them poor. The peace came with requirements that kept them dependent. We called it mentorship. They experienced it as oppression. Verlax turned to face his aide. Then we were wrong? I cannot say, High Arbiter. I can only say that the humans believe we were wrong. And their belief has led them to actions that threaten everything we have built. The silence stretched between them. There is one option we have not discussed, Verlax said finally. We could give them what they want. Korath's eyes widened. High Arbiter. We could recognize Earth as a full member of the Assembly with all the rights and privileges that entails. We could remove the restrictions on their military and economy. We could treat them as equals. The Inner Council would never agree. The Kathrani alone would block any such proposal. The Kathrani are more concerned with their pride than their survival. If we continue on this path, the Assembly will collapse around them while they argue about honor and dominance. Verlax's mandibles clicked with frustration. I've led this institution for 300 years. I have watched us grow complacent and arrogant. I have seen us treat younger species as servants rather than partners. The humans are not wrong about everything they accuse you. S of Korath remained silent, uncertain how to respond to this unprecedented admission. Send a message to Ambassador Cole, Verlax said. Request a private meeting away from the formal channels. Tell her that the High Arbiter of the Galactic Assembly wishes to speak honestly about the future. And if the Inner Council learns of this, Verlax turned back to the window, then I will deal with the consequences. But I will not stand by and watch 12,000 years of civilization burn because we were too proud to admit our mistakes. On the Independence. Admiral Santos received word of the Arbiter's request with surprise and skepticism. It could be a trick, Maria Vega observed. The Assembly has never shown any willingness to negotiate in good faith. Why would they start now? Because they are scared, Santos replied. The Neth Alliance. The Varaxian inquiries. The economic damage from our withdrawal. For the first time in millennia, the Assembly faces a genuine threat to its existence. Fear makes people do unexpected things. What? Including telling the truth? Santos smiled slightly. Even that. Sometimes, especially that. He drafted a response to President Grant, recommending that Ambassador Cole take the meeting. Whatever Verlax's true motives, information was valuable. And understanding the enemy was the first step toward either defeating them or making peace. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see which path humanity would choose in her small apartment on Earth. Linda Harper worked through the night on equations and molecular models, searching for the breakthrough that would save 3 million lives. Outside her window, the stars shone down on a planet that had cast off its chains and was learning what it meant to stand alone. The price of freedom was proving higher than anyone had expected. But the alternative, a return to servitude and humiliation, was something no one was willing to consider. Whatever came next, humanity would face it together. And they would face it standing up, 1 year after Earth's withdrawal from the Galactic Assembly. The universe had been transformed in ways that no one could have predicted. Ambassador Catherine Cole stood in the central hall of Titan Station, humanity's newest and largest orbital platform. The structure orbited Saturn, a monument to human engineering and determination built in record time. Through the transparent walls, the ringed planet hung in the darkness, beautiful and strange. A reminder of how far humanity had come from the small blue world where their journey began. Today, The station was hosting the founding ceremony of the Sol Compact. Delegates from 63 species filled the hall, representing civilizations that had chosen to leave the Galactic Assembly and join humanity in building something new. The Neth Collective had been first, their alliance with Earth opening doors that would have remained closed for centuries. The Varaxian Free States followed, bringing with them expertise in diplomacy and trade that humanity desperately needed. Then came the chorus of 10,000 worlds, a collective of smaller species who had grown tired of being ignored by the great powers. Catherine watched them gather. These beings from worlds she had never visited, creatures whose biology and culture were utterly unlike her own. A year ago, humanity had stood alone against a hostile galaxy. Now they were surrounded by friends. "It is quite a sight," said a voice beside her. She turned to find High Arbiter Verlax standing at her shoulder, his massive insectoid body looking somehow diminished in this crowd of equals. The former leader of the Galactic Assembly had shocked the universe by resigning. His position in requesting asylum on Earth, his knowledge of Assembly workings had proven invaluable in the months that followed. "I never expected to see anything like this," Catherine admitted. "When I walked out of the Assembly chamber, I thought we might not survive the year." Verlax clicked his mandibles in what she had learned to recognize as rueful acknowledgement. "You were not the only one. I believed that without the Assembly, humanity would collapse into chaos. I was wrong about many things. We all make mistakes." "Yes, but the mistakes of the powerful tend to have consequences far beyond their own lives. The Assembly I led became a tool for the strong to exploit the weak. We told ourselves we were maintaining order. We were really maintaining privilege." Catherine nodded slowly. She had come to respect Verlax over the past months, though she could not quite forgive the centuries of injustice he had presided over. Understanding and forgiveness were different things. "The Sol Compact will be different," she said. "It has to be." "That is the challenge you face," Verlax agreed. "Building something new is easy. Keeping it from becoming the thing you fled is hard. Every institution tends toward corruption over time. The question is whether you can build in safeguards that slow that process." The ceremony began with a speech from President Grant. His words carried to every corner of the station and broadcast across the member worlds of the new compact. 12 months ago, Earth stood alone against a galaxy that had treated us as servants for 3 centuries. We made a choice that many believed was suicide. We chose dignity over security, freedom over comfort, uncertainty over the chains we knew. He paused, looking out at the assembled delegates. "We did not make that choice, expecting to succeed. We made it because the alternative was unacceptable. We would rather fail standing up than live forever on our knees." Grant's voice strengthened. "Because we were not as alone as we believed. Across this galaxy, other species watched our struggle and recognized something of themselves. They too had been exploited, diminished, treated as lesser. They too had dreamed of something better but feared the cost of reaching for it." He gestured to the crowd around him. "Today, 63 civilizations stand together in this hall, not as subjects of a greater power, but as partners in a common endeavor. The Sol Compact is not a new empire. It is not a replacement for the structures we fled. It is something unprecedented in galactic history, a voluntary association of equals, bound by mutual respect rather than force." The chamber erupted in applause from dozens of species, each expressing approval in their own way. The sound was strange and beautiful, a symphony of alien voices united in hope. After the ceremony, Admiral Santos found Catherine on the observation deck, watching the stars through the transparent walls. "You should be celebrating with the others," she said. Santos shrugged. "I am not much for parties. Besides, someone needs to keep watch." The Cathroni hegemony did not dissolve when the Assembly weakened. They are out there planning their revenge. "Do you think they will attack?" "Eventually. They cannot accept a galaxy where humanity stands as their equal. Their entire culture is built on dominance and hierarchy. Our existence as a free people is an insult they cannot ignore." Catherine nodded. "Then we prepare. We're preparing. The compact fleet grows stronger every day. Our technology advances faster than theirs. And we have allies now, real allies who will stand with us when the time comes. He turned to face her directly. But that is not why I came to find you. I wanted to thank you. Catherine raised an eyebrow. Thank me for having the courage to walk out of that chamber. For saying what needed to be said when everyone else was too afraid. This compact, this alliance, this new future we are building, none of it would exist without that moment. Catherine looked away, uncomfortable with praise. I was just the messenger. The decision was made by President Grant and the United Earth government. But you delivered the message. You stood alone before 400 species and told them that humanity would no longer accept their contempt. That took more courage than any battle I have ever fought. They stood together in silence, watching Saturn's rings catch the distant light of the sun. Do you think it will last? Catherine asked finally. The compact, I mean. Can we really build something different? Something better? Santos considered the question carefully. I do not know, he admitted. History is full of revolutions that failed, of new orders that became as corrupt as the old. We are not special. We are not immune to the forces that have destroyed every other attempt at utopia. He paused. But we have something those other attempts did not have. We have experience. We know what it feels like to be oppressed, to be dismissed, to be treated as less than equal. That memory will not last forever, but it will last for a while. And maybe, if we are wise and lucky, we can build institutions strong enough to preserve our values even after the memory fades. Catherine nodded slowly. And if we fail? Santos smiled, and there was warmth in it despite the weight of his words. Then we fail having tried. We fail having reached for something better. We fail having shown the galaxy that there is another way, even if we cannot quite reach it ourselves. Sometimes that is the best any generation can do. Lighting a torch and hoping someone else will carry it further. The stars burned around them, ancient and indifferent, witnesses to the rise and fall of countless civilizations across the eons. In the grand sweep of cosmic history, humanity was still young, still uncertain, still learning what they might become. But they were no longer alone, and they were no longer afraid. Whatever the future held, they would face it together, as equals, as partners, as something new under the ancient stars. And perhaps, just perhaps, that would be enough.